Inspector. It's Friday, May 16th. We're going to be going over our YieldMax ETF covered call funds, AMDY, AMZY, APLY, FBY, GOOY, MSFO, and NFLY. All right, it is payday if you have Group A or any of the weekly payers. Along with most people's payday's Friday anyway. If you're paid weekly, lucky you. All right, let's take a look at how the stock market did today related to these. AMD went up 1.9%, AMDY 1.54%, Amazon up 0.2%, AMZY lost 0.06%, so a couple pennies. Apple, on the other hand, lost money, but the YieldMax fund covering Apple went up over 0.5%. Meta down 0.55%, while FBY stayed flat. Alphabet up 1.36%, with GOOY going up 0.33%. Microsoft up 0.25%, with MSFO up 0.75%. And Netflix had another big day, 1.15%. NFLY up 0.22%. I think a lot of that's because they were capped. If you don't know what that means, they sold a covered call and the stock price went beyond the covered call, so you obviously don't continue gaining value because you just have to pay more to close that out. All right, so we'll start at the beginning with AMDY. Now, with it being Friday and these guys sell weeklies on their options, unless they've already closed out this week and started next week, they're going to have a trade today. So AMDY closed out their 120 calls for 7 cents. Obviously, that's a win. And they, let's see, did we see them? 120. What they just sold them yesterday for $1.34, bought them back today for 7 cents. So big win on that one. And then they turned around and sold next week's calls at 121. So overall, they made $660,000 rolling their positions from this week to next week. What do we want to talk about? They declare in 12 days, so not this coming week, but the one after that. They actually have a decrease in outstanding shares of 150,000. Their synthetic is valued at $7.5 million. Because they have a 110 synthetic price, and what that just means is on these funds, as opposed to if you follow ALTI and some of the other ones, they don't actually own any shares of AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. They sell puts and buy calls at the same price, generally at the money for whatever the time is when they do it. So 110 was the price. So since the stock has gone up to 117, the value of the put that they sold went down, so they'll have to buy that back eventually. And the value of the call that they bought went up. So the thing that they purchased increased in value. The thing that they sold has decreased. So that's ideal. Increase in $7.5 million. We already talked about. So they had already rolled a portion of their shares the other day, but then these right here, they got rolled, so no need to concern ourselves with. Really, we're not going to go into the percentages in or out of the money on these because they're all getting changed. And as you see, we've talked about this before, they've got $14 and $6-ish million set up here, and ballpark $1 million down here on $146 million in assets. So the majority of the money in the fund is sitting safely in treasuries while they're still able to make millions of dollars just using a fraction of the money. So that's nice. Next, we'll go to AMZY, Amazon option fund. So they already rolled everything yesterday. So no trades today. They've got a synthetic for July 18th at 185 with the stock at 205, over $20 in the money. So that's worth $26 million, almost 27. That's beautiful. That'll eventually be a nice payday, but unfortunately, they will not be closing out the July 18th before their next declaration day that's on June 4th, so that won't factor into how much you're getting paid for them. All right. They've got all their contracts for 210 for next Friday with the stock at 205. So they need a less than $5 a week coming up. 16 million outstanding shares, $255 million in net assets. APLY, I forgot to fix these when I got done with them. There we go. All right, they closed out their 212.50s for this week and opened up 215s for next week. That's a win. Let's see, 212.50. Do we see when they bought these? Or when they sold them, I mean. Sold for 157 and 154. Bought them back for 14 cents. So big win. Sold the next ones for $1.24 and closed out their call it the insurance policy. So where Ulti insurance policy is they buy a put because they're actually protecting their shares. On all these funds, they sell a call closer out of the money, but closer to the money, and then they buy another call further out. So it's cheaper to buy the further out one, and that one just protects you in case the stock blows right past the call that you sold it at, because once that happens, now it's going to cost you money to close it out. So they are able to limit how much money they can possibly lose. That's why they buy a call further out, and then they have it to sell at the end. So they made $607,000 in their roll today. Moving on to FBY that follows Meta. Oh, did I jump too fast? I did. All right, so they have a synthetic, back to Apple. They have a synthetic for June 20th at 210 with a stock price at 211. So synthetic value of the stock is 1.3 million. 19 days till declaration. They probably won't close out their synthetic before your next declaration, so you'll just need them to make money on their options trading. We just saw they closed these out. So as of yesterday, they would have cost $536,000 to close out. Today they closed them out for $76,000. So good old time decay. All right, and 8.75 million shares outstanding. That was an increase from the day before of 325,000 shares, and $117 million, almost 118 net assets. Again, with the majority of it sitting in treasuries safely. They're making money enough to pay these, 60% annualized distributions while protecting the majority of the money. All right, FBY closed out their 675 and their 650s, paying 3 cents and 7 cents a share. Big win. I don't know. Do you guys want me to go back and find each one? 675. When did they sell it? Sold it for $3.06, bought it back for 3 cents. 650. Sold it for $5.25 and bought it for 7 cents. Big wins again. Started new positions for next week. 652.50 and 645 are the calls that they sold to make the money, bringing in $583,000 rolling the next week. This fund is Group B. They declare next week. Next Wednesday they'll declare. They have a synthetic at 660. Currently that's underwater, so it's going to cost them money to close that out. As of right now, it's going to cost almost $3 million to close it out. but it's for July 18th, so it's got time and it won't be getting closed out before your next declaration, so that cost won't hurt you if you hold this fund. Well, again, we don't need to talk about these. It's a $160 million fund, 9.8 million outstanding shares. It'll probably increase. People like to buy in right before the distribution so they can get their money. And it increased since yesterday by 150,000 shares. On to GOOY. If you've got them, you got a paycheck today. Got some extra money in your trading account. So let's see. This one seems like it hurt a little bit. I'm not sure. Closed out the 167.50s for 5 cents. That's for sure a win. Opened up 170s for next week. Closed out 162.50s. Those hurt. $4 a share. So that was almost $1 million cost. Opened up 172.50s. So what do we open? 170s, 172.50s, and more 170s. Where'd it go? We got 157 there and 192 there, so they did better on the second round of them. And then they closed out another large chunk, 3,000 contracts at 162.50, costing over 1.2 million. So they paid $4 and $428. Overall loss of $1.3 million on the roll to next week. This is Group A. It just declared, so you've got 4 weeks till the next one. They've got a synthetic 6,805 contracts at 160 with a stock price at 166. So that synthetic is currently worth almost $3.5 million. Another one till July 18th, so don't expect that to get closed out anytime soon. Most of the money in treasuries, $108 million being managed here, and an even 9 million shares. MSFO. Zoomed out a little bit. Let's see, they closed their 460s that were expiring today for 4 cents. That's a win. They sold them yesterday. Sold them for 85 cents yesterday, bought them back for 4 cents today. So luckily, even when they take a loss, they come back swinging just to claw and get a little bit more money. Opened up next week's at 457.50. Closed out the 457.50s for this week. Paid 3 cents. Do we have them on here too? Sold them for $1.49. So they did nice. Working with what they had, right? It's a hard market to be selling covered calls in when stocks are jumping 10 and 20% in a day. It has been absolutely insane lately. And they opened some 455s. Overall, netting $482,000 of profit on the roll to next week. They declare in 12 days, so not this coming week, but the one after. 6.7 million shares outstanding, 117 million in the fund. It's got a July 18th 435 synthetic sitting at 454. So what's that? $19. So $5.8 million of value. Won't be closed out before your next declaration. All right, and last but not least, NFLY. All right, rolling to next week. They got beat up pretty bad because this stock moved a whole lot this week. So they closed out their 1175s and had to pay $18 to close them out. They closed out their 1170s and had to pay $23.55 to close them out. So big loss, over $2.5 million loss just between those two closeouts. And then they opened next week's for $1,230 and $1,220. Picked up a little over $1 million on that. Overall loss of 1.6, almost $1.7 million rolling to next week. NFLY declares in 12 days. Seems like we got a lot of Group C. stock price ended at 11.91. They've got an 11.40 as their synthetic price for July 18th with 1,195 contracts. That's worth $5.7 million currently. There was an increase in outstanding shares of 75,000, moving up to 7,650,000. There's $141 million managed in the fund. Again, we're not talking about these today because they just did close things out, so these will all get updated after the video's over. All right, I think that's all I have for you. And unfortunately, I forgot to look up a dad joke, so you can just laugh at me for that one. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, whatever. Tell me if you've got some of these funds. Again, I asked this yesterday, but just in case you didn't watch it, not seeing a whole lot of people say they got a whole lot of these funds. So maybe I should be covering something else. So let me know. Thank you. Everybody have a good night.